The entire hip-hop world just stopped breathing. Young Thug, the man who built an empire out of chaos, melody, and madness, has been caught, and the streets can't handle it. This isn't just another rapper in cuffs headline. This is a cultural earthquake shaking the very foundation of trap music itself. One second, he's the king of Atlanta's sound. The next, blue lights are flashing, cameras rolling, and every fan in disbelief. This arrest didn't just trend, it detonated. Twitter melted. TikTok detectives clocked in like FBI agents. Memes, theories, leaked footage, and free Thug chants took over the internet faster than a Drake feature on release day. It's the kind of chaos that makes the Grammys look like kindergarten recess. Everyone wants to know, what really happened? Was this a setup, a takedown, or karma catching up with one of hip-hop's wildest architects? This story's got everything. Loyalty, betrayal, luxury, law, and lyrics that may have gone from poetic to problematic overnight. And if you thought this was just another rapper doing time, think again. This isn't the fall of an artist, it's the unraveling of a movement. Because Young Thug wasn't just a name on a track list, he was the culture. His flow built an entire generation's sound. His influence dripped into every bar, every beat, every chart-topping hit. Now the question echoing through every timeline is brutal. Can hip-hop survive the fall of its most unpredictable genius? So sit tight, because what's coming next isn't just a story. It's an autopsy of fame, freedom, and the price of power. The streets of Atlanta never sleep. But on the day Young Thug got caught, even the city that raised him seemed to stop breathing. News hit like a thunderclap. Sirens, flashing lights, whispers turning into roars. The same man who turned the word slime into a worldwide brand was now being read his rights. The irony was almost cinematic. The king of the underground, trapped by his own kingdom. For years, Young Thug was untouchable, the eccentric visionary who blurred the lines between trap and art, chaos and genius. He was the ringleader of innovation, the man who could mumble something into a mic and turn it into a platinum hit. His voice wasn't just music, it was movement. But behind that sound, behind the fame and flamboyant confidence, there was always a shadow lurking, one that finally caught up with him. It started with whispers, quiet ones at first, the kind of whispers that float through studios and after-parties, tucked between the beats and smoke. They watching Thug. Feds building something big. Most dismissed it. After all, how many times had hip-hop cried wolf? But this time, the wolf wasn't rumor. It was Rico. When the news broke that Young Thug and members of YSL, Young Slime Life, were indicted under Georgia's racketeering laws, it felt like the walls of hip-hop shook. The government wasn't just coming for one man. They were coming for the culture. The RICO charge was a declaration. The line between artistry and criminality had officially blurred, and the law wasn't laughing anymore. Prosecutors called YSL a violent street gang disguised as a record label. They said the lyrics were evidence, the lifestyle was proof, and the empire was built not just on beats, but blood. They painted Thug as a mastermind, not of music, but of mayhem. He's the boss, they said. He gives the orders. The same words you'd hear in a mob movie were now being thrown at one of hip-hop's most creative forces. The reaction was chaos. Social media exploded. Fans refused to believe it. Not Thug, one tweet said. He too smart for that. But the documents, the court filings, the witness lists, they were longer than a mixtape catalogue. It wasn't speculation anymore. It was strategy, from both sides. You could almost hear the internet gasp when Thug's mugshot dropped. That haunting stare, equal parts fury and disbelief, became the image of a fallen king. The man who wore skirts to break gender norms, who rewrote Atlanta's sonic DNA, was now wearing a jumpsuit. And just like that, his lyrics, once celebrated for being fearless, were being dissected like criminal confessions. Songs like Anybody, Take It to Trial, and Just How It Is suddenly became courtroom evidence. Prosecutors argued that art was admission. Fans called it unfair. They can't use lyrics, they said. But the legal system doesn't care about artistic intent. When your music matches your movements, the court starts connecting dots, even if they're imaginary. The arrest didn't just stop a rapper. It disrupted a whole generation. YSL wasn't just a label, it was a lifestyle. Gunna, Lil Keed, and dozens of rising stars orbited around Thug's gravity. He wasn't just a boss, he was a gatekeeper. His influence touched everything from fashion to slang to how a generation saw success. But now, that empire was under lockdown. Studio sessions stopped, music videos paused, artists cancelled collabs overnight. What used to be YSL, a symbol of ambition, was now being spoken about like a cartel. The word family suddenly sounded like evidence, and then came the media storm. News anchors who couldn't tell a mixtape from a melody were suddenly hip-hop experts. They flashed mugshots, played snippets of lyrics, and spoke Thug's name with that smug tone reserved for fallen icons. Rapper Young Thug, they'd say, has been arrested in connection to gang activity. They never said artist, never said visionary, because in their eyes, art can't come from the streets. Only crime can. But what they didn't understand was how deep Thug's roots ran. He wasn't just some rapper who got rich and reckless. He was the blueprint for a generation of creatives who learned to turn pain into production. He built his world from nothing, literally nothing. Growing up in the Jonesboro South projects, he'd seen more loss by 15 than most people do in a lifetime. His music wasn't just expression, it was survival with a melody. And that's what made this so gutting. Because no matter how wild Thug's world got, fans always believed he'd found a way to escape the cycle. His success was proof that chaos could evolve into creation. That a man could go from poverty to power, from the block to Billboard without losing himself. But now it felt like the past had dragged him back by the collar. As police footage rolled across every platform, hip-hop Twitter turned into a crime lab. Fans became detectives, experts became theorists, and every lyric became a clue. People dissected his songs like sacred texts. Was he confessing the whole time? Was YSL really more than music? Did Gunna know? The lines between fandom and investigation blurred beyond recognition. Then came the celebrities. Everyone had a take. Some stood by him. Others distanced themselves quicker than Wi-Fi in a storm. Meek Mill tweeted support. Boosie went off in disbelief. Academics live-streamed it like he was narrating a Netflix crime doc. Even Kim Kardashian weighed in, calling for fair treatment under the law. It wasn't just a case anymore. It was a cultural civil war. Justice versus expression, system versus sound. And right in the middle was Thug, sitting behind bars, silent but still somehow dominating headlines. You couldn't escape it. Every podcast, every TikTok breakdown, every gossip show had his name on their tongue. Thug wasn't trending. He was the trend. But the more people talked, the more the mystery deepened, because nobody really knew the full story. Was he the leader of a criminal enterprise, or the victim of a system that can't tell art from evidence? The truth was, the lines were too blurred. Hip-hop has always walked the tightrope between reality and performance. Rappers narrate the struggle, but sometimes they also live it. The audience craves authenticity, but when that authenticity turns into evidence, suddenly everyone gets selective about what real means. That's what makes this story bigger than one man. It's a reflection of the culture itself, the paradox of wanting your artist to be real until they're too real. The public wants danger in the music, but not in the courtroom. They want the stories, but not the consequences. And Young Thug's arrest became the ultimate example of that contradiction. So, as he sat in his cell, while fans screamed, "Free Thug," the bigger question wasn't whether he'd get out, it was whether hip-hop would ever be the same. Because no matter how the case plays out, one thing is already certain. Young Thug's name will forever sit at the intersection of art, danger, and legacy. He didn't just get caught, he got immortalized in controversy. And for an artist who's always thrived on chaos, maybe that's the cruelest irony of all. The internet didn't sleep the night Young Thug's arrest hit the timeline. It wasn't just a story, it was an event. It had that once-in-a-decade shockwave that turns timelines into courtroom theaters and fan bases into defense lawyers. Every corner of social media became a battleground between those shouting "Free Thug" and those whispering he knew what he was doing. The debate spread like wildfire, but under all the noise was one truth. This wasn't about one artist anymore. It was about the soul of hip-hop itself. Because here's the thing. Thug wasn't some random rapper who blew up overnight. He was the architect of modern trap, the melodic blueprint that artists from Lil Baby to Future to Gunna built empires on. He was hip-hop's Picasso and villain all in one. Flamboyant, fearless, unpredictable. He blurred every line that tradition tried to draw. But when you live life that loud, the system eventually wants to turn the volume down. And that's exactly what happened. As prosecutors piled on the RICO charges, social media started dissecting the lyrics like they were court transcripts written in rhyme. I shot at his mum, he no longer mentioned me. A bar that once sounded like just another flex suddenly became an alleged confession. The same words that made him famous were now being used to build a cage. Fans screamed artistic expression, but the court saw criminal coordination. It was a dangerous precedent, one that made every rapper in America glance nervously at their Spotify playlists. Because if Young Thug's lyrics could be evidence, no one was safe. The freedom of expression that hip-hop was built on was suddenly on trial too. And that scared people, not just artists, but the culture. Then came the twist nobody saw coming. Insiders began talking. Whispers turned into statements. Some of Thug's closest associates reportedly flipped under pressure. Testimonies leaked. Screenshots circulated. What started as loyalty began cracking into survival instinct. It was betrayal disguised as strategy. And just like that, the Brotherhood of Slime started looking more like a house of cards. But if you thought Thug was about to break down, you don't know the man. His silence became his power. No interviews, no statements, no apologies, just stillness. And that silence was louder than any verse he ever recorded. While the world was busy guessing, he was letting the chaos speak for him. He didn't chase sympathy. He commanded attention. That's what separates Thug from everyone else. Most artists drown in scandal. He surfs it. The louder the noise, the more control he gains. When fans posted Free YSL, they weren't just protesting, they were promoting. Streams went up. Old songs charted again. His influence grew even as his freedom shrank. It was a twisted irony. Being locked up made him more powerful. But power attracts pressure. Other artists started facing questions too. Gunna's name became its own storm when he accepted an Alford plea. A legal move that wasn't a confession. But to the internet, it was betrayal. The culture went nuclear. Some called him a snitch. Others said he just did what anyone would do. But one thing was clear. The YSL Brotherhood that once looked bulletproof now looked broken. Every podcast, every blog, every gossip outlet turned into a digital courtroom. Vlad TV, academics, No Jumper, they all had theories, insiders, and fake leaks. YouTubers were dropping evidence breakdowns like lawyers with editing software. It was messy, wild, and addictive. Hip-hop had officially become reality TV with felony charges. And then the memes came. Oh, the memes. Twitter turned the case into content. Photoshop warriors replaced the scales of justice with Thug's green slime logo. One viral post said, "Rico's the new mixtape." Another said, "Feds dropping more heat than DJ Khaled." The internet was laughing through the chaos, because when something this shocking happens, humor becomes survival. Meanwhile, the courtroom scenes got crazier. Witnesses backtracked. Lawyers got arrested. Judges lectured the jury like they were TikTok creators. At one point, a potential witness refused to testify out of fear for his life. This wasn't a trial anymore. It was an opera, and everyone was performing under the spotlight. But beyond the madness, there was a tragic truth. Young Thug was still a father, a son, and an artist whose genius got buried under the headlines. People forget that behind the designer clothes and viral antics was a kid who once wrote songs to escape poverty. Every time he looked at those courtroom walls, he wasn't just seeing bars. He was seeing the blueprint of everything he built being questioned. It's the cruelest part of fame. The same system that celebrates your story will turn it into evidence when it suits them. They love you as long as you stay entertaining. But the moment your art gets too close to reality, they call it a crime scene. And yet, there's something poetic about how Thug's influence refuses to die. Even in jail, his voice echoes through the new generation. Lil Baby still calls him Big Bro. Drake still shouts him out. Artists copy his style like scripture. He may be caged, but his sound is free. You can't handcuff an idea. And that's what Thug represents. The uncontainable, the untamable, the misunderstood. But while the fans romanticize, the prosecutors strategize. They've got lyrics, witnesses, social media posts, even group chats. They've built a narrative that paints Thug as both hero and villain. A man who lived too close to the line between authenticity and insanity. And in America, that line isn't drawn with ink. It's drawn with intent. The fans don't see that though. To them, this is still a movement. Free Thug has become a brand, a chant, a declaration. You'll see it on shirts, in captions, in music videos. Because whether he's guilty or not, his story represents something bigger. The fight between creation and control. The system hates when it can't define you. And Thug was never meant to be defined. Every new headline feels like a plot twist. One week, there's talk of witness intimidation. The next, rumors of new charges. Then a viral clip of the judge quoting his lyrics in court, like hip-hop turned into Shakespeare. You couldn't make it up if you tried. Every hearing feels like an episode of Law and Order Atlanta edition. And through it all, Thug remains silent. That silence cuts through the noise like a blade, because when he finally speaks, whether it's from a cell or a stage, it's going to shake the world again. People can feel it. His energy's too big to fade. Even the haters know it. By now, the world has learned two things about young Thug. 1, he's unpredictable. 2, he's unstoppable. You can arrest the man, but you can't arrest his impact. His DNA runs through every beat, every melody, every rapper trying to sound futuristic. He changed the game so deeply that even if the system buries him, his influence will keep resurfacing like a ghost the industry can't exorcise. That's why the culture can't let him go, because deep down, everyone knows. This isn't just about one artist being locked up. It's about what happens when creativity threatens control. When the system realizes that music made in the trenches has more influence than laws made in offices. Young Thug's arrest didn't end a chapter in hip-hop. It opened a wound that bleeds through every beat, every courtroom, every headline. And as the trial drags on, one thing's for sure. The world isn't watching for justice anymore. It's watching to see if the man who defied every rule can somehow rewrite one more. By now, the Young Thug saga isn't just a criminal case. It's a cultural mirror. Every twist, every leak, every courtroom clip feels like hip-hop staring at itself, realizing the line between fame and fallout was thinner than anyone thought. The man who once rapped about turning pain into platinum now sits at the center of a billion-dollar conversation about freedom, art, and the price of truth in a world addicted to spectacle. Inside those courtroom walls, it's not just Thug on trial, it's the entire DNA of modern rap. The prosecution talks like they're quoting lyrics. The defense argues like they're breaking down bars. And in the middle sits an artist who turned every ounce of his chaos into melody, now forced to explain whether his art was autobiography or imagination. The irony is enough to make Shakespeare jealous. And here's the wild part. Even as the case drags on, his power refuses to fade. From behind bars, Thug is still shaping the sound of the streets. Songs he recorded years ago are re-emerging like prophecy. His voice, raw and unpredictable, still charts on playlists worldwide. It's as if the universe refuses to let him disappear, even when the system tries. Every headline meant to bury him ends up boosting his legend. That's not damage control, that's destiny. What the world's finally realizing is that Thug wasn't just another rapper. He was an ecosystem. He birthed a style that raised a generation of melodic hustlers and fearless weirdos who made emotions sound like rebellion. When he sang about pain, he made vulnerability look dangerous. When he dressed different, he made defiance fashionable. He didn't just break molds, he melted them down and built thrones out of the mess. So now, watching him fight for his freedom feels personal. Fans aren't just defending a man, they're defending the right to be misunderstood, the right to express without censorship, the right to be loud, wrong, emotional, and still human. For every artist who's ever turned trauma into tracks, this trial is a warning shot. The internet's obsession hasn't slowed. Every day there's a new thread, a new clip, a new conspiracy. One day it's an alleged witness backing out. The next day, rumors of plea bargains swirl. TikTok users play detective, while podcasts break down transcripts like it's Game of Thrones. Hip-hop has never seen a courtroom case turned into this much digital theater. It's reality TV with real consequences. And Thug's the unwilling main character. Even the industry can't decide where it stands. Some artists stay silent, afraid of guilt by association. Others scream his name on stage, turning concerts into protests. Lil Durk wore Free Thug shirts. Drake called him a once-in-a-generation innovator. 21 Savage posted snake emojis like coded prayers. For every person distancing themselves, 3 more double down in solidarity. Because deep down, everyone knows. If they can cage Thug, they can cage any artist who dares to live their lyrics. The culture feels it. The fear, the fatigue, the fight. It's not just about a man behind bars. It's about the system trying to sanitize creativity. America loves hip-hop when it's profitable, but punishes it when it's honest. They'll stream your pain, but they won't protect your truth. That's why Thug's silence is so loud. It's the sound of resistance, but even resistance has a cost. Sound of resistance, But even resistance has a cost. Reports say the trial's been brutal. Long hours, emotional breakdowns, witnesses recanting, lawyers arguing like politicians. The judge reportedly warned both sides to stop performing for cameras. But how can they? The whole world's watching, waiting for a verdict that could define the next decade of rap. And in true Young Thug fashion, he remains unpredictable. Some days he smiles in court. Some days he looks detached, like he's somewhere else entirely, maybe reliving the stages, the fans, the chaos. He knows the stakes. He knows this isn't just about innocence or guilt. It's about legacy. He's fighting for the right to be remembered as a visionary, not a villain. Meanwhile, the internet can't help itself. Every clip, every look, every moment becomes content. One photo of him praying during recess went viral. Fans captioned it, "Even slime talks to God." Another clip of him nodding along to evidence turned into memes. When you realize your own bars age too well. It's morbid, hilarious, tragic. Everything that makes this era so unhinged. But beyond the noise, there's pain. Real pain. Because for all his wild antics and cryptic persona, Young Thug was a lifeline for millions who saw themselves in his madness. He gave broken kids permission to dream, misfits permission to shine, and outsiders permission to belong. That kind of impact doesn't fade. It festers into devotion. That's why every update about his trial feels like a personal loss for fans who grew up on his sound. And maybe that's what makes his story so haunting. He was never the clean-cut hero, never the sanitized superstar. He was chaos in designer, clothes, the kind of artist who lived too fast for the world to label, but that's what made him real. That's what made him magnetic. You couldn't cancel him because you couldn't define him. Now, with the industry holding its breath, people are starting to ask the uncomfortable question. What if he never walks free again? What happens to hip-hop then? Does it evolve without him, or does it lose something it can't replace? The idea that his voice might go silent forever feels impossible, because for the last decade, it's been everywhere. His influence runs too deep to erase. Even behind bars, Thug's team is still working. Producers are releasing unreleased tracks, his brand partnerships are holding steady, and his fan base is louder than ever. It's a reminder that legacy doesn't live in contracts or headlines. It lives in culture, and culture doesn't care about courtrooms. The tragic beauty of it all is that this might be the story that cements his immortality. Every legend in hip-hop has a defining battle. Tupac had his politics, Biggie had his rivalry, Kanye had his ego, and Thug, he's got the system. The world loves a rebel, but it worships a survivor. And if Young Thug beats this case, or even if he doesn't, he's already carved his place in history. Because when people talk about modern rap a decade from now, they won't just mention hits and numbers. They'll mention the man who made the world question whether art can exist without judgment. The man who turned language into lifestyle. The man who proved that genius often looks like madness until it's understood. And maybe that's the real tragedy. The system doesn't understand him, so it tries to erase him. But legends don't vanish. They evolve. They become stories parents tell their kids when they explain how hip-hop survived everything thrown its way, from censorship to criminalization to cultural warfare. So as the trial crawls on and the cameras keep flashing, one thing remains undeniable. Young Thug is no longer just an artist. He's a symbol, a paradox, a reminder that freedom isn't always physical, and influence doesn't end with incarceration. They can cage the man, but not the movement. They can seize his assets, but not his anthem. They can drag his name through the mud, but the sound he created will echo through generations. Because Young Thug didn't just make music, he made impact. He turned pain into art, and art into rebellion. And whether this story ends in redemption or ruin, he's already won the only battle that really matters. He's unforgettable, he's untouchable, he's uncancelable. And there it is, the rise, the fall, and the legacy of a man too wild for the system to contain. Young Thug didn't just change music, he reprogrammed it. He didn't just inspire a sound, he built a movement that refused to follow rules. From the trap to the top, from chaos to creation, he turned struggle into symphony. And even behind bars, he's louder than half the industry combined. So now it's your turn. What do you think? Is this justice finally catching up? Or the system once again targeting hip-hop greatness? Drop your thoughts below and don't hold back. The comment section's about to go up like the courtroom cameras on verdict day. And before you scroll away, smash that like button like it just dropped a platinum single. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment when truth and turbulence collide. Because here at The Rap Truth, we don't just report what happened, we decode why it happened, how it shook the culture, and what's coming next. Tomorrow's story. Let's just say another rap legend's name is starting to trend for all the wrong reasons. And you already know we'll be here to break it down first. Stay locked in, stay sharp, and remember, fame fades, clout cracks, but truth always raps back. This is The Rap Truth, where we turn chaos into commentary, scandal into storytelling, and music into movement.